Okay, so here we are. Like I was just saying, not too many people in class. Had some issues with Wi-Fi. Had to bump the time up, so some of you all couldn't make it. So probably not the biggest presentation, but this is a continuation of the last one. We were talking about the origin of like misconceptions about this topic. Also wanted to mention, I don't know if maybe I'll post a link in the comments. It's a big Reddit.com, like AMA, Ask Me Anything with me right now in the Astral projection forum, and a lot of surprisingly interesting questions people are asking that I've had to rack my brain about a little bit. But they're pretty interesting things. So if you're interested in that, you could check that out. So anyway, so that's what we're focusing on again today. I don't think I'll put this one on YouTube, but in the event I do someday, then I guess I did. If you watch. So let's see. Why is my phone buzzing? Somebody trying to message me about the class, maybe? Hold on.
His Holiness.
His Holiness is.
Wait a second. What's going on?
I heard you're in town. Let's hook up.
You're talking about Dalai Lama?
Yeah.
Yes. His Holiness.
Did I miss something?
That is what you do.
I think so.
All right.
There's only two of us, and I'm about as deep as a bird bath, so
It's all fine.
It's not going to be an outstanding class.
I'm just glad Zoom is working. I was freaking out. I was going to have to go find, like, literally, because I have like some stuff going on, like that. Supposedly, I'll be on that podcast with Anthony Peake debating him in like next week or in a couple of weeks. And I was thinking, man, I'm going to have to find like a short time hotel to go into for the Wi-Fi. And you know why they have those hotels is so, like, you know, because I tell you, it's like a sexually repressed culture in Japan. So they have to sneak off with their girlfriends. So they book these love hotels for like 2 or 3 hours at a time. And so usually it has like a rotating bed and all that kind of stuff, you know. Yeah, I'm thinking, man, if I'm gonna have like these podcasts, I'm gonna have to.
So see, you need to go to that and then like broadcast from there and have the bed spinning. That'd be awesome.
The little vibrating beds, maybe it vibrates.
Yeah,
too.
and I think I'll win the debate against Anthony Peake automatically if I do that.
You will. You can stack stuff on the bed and having it spin behind you. It'd be awesome.
Yeah, I think
like really awkward mannequins or like people in cosplay.
Yeah, I mean,
You could get those girls to stand behind you and they could go around in a circle.
That's the future, I think, but I don't have the budget right now to hire that. Well, anyway, let me just go over this. I don't even have photos up for this one, but
Okay.
recap. Okay, so last week we talked about psychic versus mental versus tangible experiences. They have a distinction. This is why many people get confused. So people have like mental trips, and then people have like tangible encounters with like the other side. And so people confuse these two states together. And this is why many people have confusion issues with the whole subject, because it's these are almost like two different types of phenomena. So it would seem in life we have a combination of hierarching mental experiences and down-to-earth experiences in objective worlds. So this is just two sides of the same coin, two ways that reality operates. I've had this cotton mouth. This calls into question whether an NDE is like a near-death experience is even sometimes truly what we call like an afterlife experience, or if it's more of a connection to your higher self and like a cosmic trip similar to DMT. So very often, I mean, can we argue that a higher self experience is an afterlife experience? Because we can argue it's not. that where we like are physically existing and after we die is not the same as having a cosmic trip. It's also possible to induce these states chemically, as many do now, to have spiritually transformative experiences. We go into the concept of DMT, mushrooms, ayahuasca. But also, as I talked about last class, not many people have like spirit encounters with those drugs. So more like going inward, not going outward. Although some people do encounter like extra dimensional entities, but yet they're not encountering like our deceased loved ones. They encounter like really weird stuff that are still external and real, but it's like they live on a level that's closer into the spectrum of like of where DMT takes you than would be here. So you attract the attention of all kinds of weird alien type things. That's what Joe Rogan talks about. He's talking about meeting these entities, and so it's popular right now because Joe Rogan's been talking about it. But still may create incorrect conclusions about the literal afterlife. So we can't say a DMT trip is the afterlife, can we? So this is what I call fear and loathing in the astral. So this is the next issue when it comes to major misconceptions about the subject. This is what I wanted to talk about a little bit. Fear / paranoia / anxiety or clinging to the negative is the other major source of misconceptions, and this has been coming up a lot lately. Having this debate again, like I said, on Reddit, where there was this other user who was like coming up with all this really negative stuff about astral projection. And then I had to kind of move in and do a counter argument. But then it also brings to mind some of these other authors I've been kind of struggling with. So a lot of this comes from this perspective of it's too good to be true. So it may not be spoken outright, but it derives from atheism, cynicism, nihilism, or otherwise being jaded by spiritual philosophy. So this could be affecting someone's interpretation of reality, even if they are claiming to be enlightened, full of knowledge, a teacher, an author, and so forth. But it's just their subjective interpretation of reality. Really, the idea of something is too good to be true is no more valid than so good it has to be true. So it's positivity versus negative polarity, and it's up to us. Now, hold on one second. I'm getting some messages on Facebook. I want to see if it's other subscribers who maybe are trying to get in or having difficulty. Nope. So there's some examples. So many authors may be operating from an it's not really what everyone thinks perspective, which is kind of like a conspiracy-based angle. For example, Anthony Peake believes we are not really connecting to an afterlife, but instead we end up living our same life over and over again like Groundhog Day. Bases this off of what I see as very, very limited evidence. It's a lot of conclusions that he jumps to, but it's rooted in this idea. It's like, well, I hear about all these afterlife accounts. I mean, Peake is a member of like the near-death, like Ions or something like that. So he knows about like people connecting with loved ones and afterlife related stuff, but his opinion is something like, well, I can't just accept that. It's too good to be true. There must be something else going on. It must be we're all being deceived somehow, and this is really what's happening. And then he pushes that theory instead of just taking what it is at face value. He goes down this other road. Tom Campbell, similar. Tom Campbell says, we're not really connecting with our deceased loved ones. They must be some kind of illusion made by a cosmic computer program. Again, there isn't evidence for this, but like with Peake, they both make statements about these things being true, kind of like on absolute terms. Like instead of saying, oh, this is my theory, this is my hypothesis, they say, this is the way it is. Your loved ones are computer programs. And it pisses a lot of people off. They don't really have evidence. What they're doing is they're they're connecting theories that are kind of like a connected dots puzzle, but they're drawing their own shape. They're saying, well, there's Schrodinger's cat and deja vu, therefore everyone is an illusion. And, if you look at some of this work critically, it really falls apart. There's other alternative authors. We hear a lot, the afterlife is not real. It's an illusion made by the demiurge or archons. So this is Gnosticism gone awry. And we're hearing this a lot lately. It's like, and I don't know how, they may have a point about this whole light stuff. They say don't go to the light, it's a trap. But it also seems like fear-based paranoia as well. Personally, I don't know. I hear a lot of accounts about that. That's a whole different subject. A lot of other OBE people say that they discover that the light is like something, because I've long criticized the idea of, I'll go into the light, merge with God, and, get absorbed and disappear into it. Like some NDE authors claim is what they want to have happen to them. And I say, well, how is that different from normal death? Even from the materialist standpoint, you will no longer exist. You just get eaten up, gobbled up by the light. And then if I cross-interpret that with what some of these other people are saying, which the light's a trap, okay, maybe there's a point going on there, And then if I analyze how people like I've met astrally and who mediums have connected to often don't recount the light, that's also kind of suspicious. So I think that there's a couple of reasons there for me to raise an eyebrow, but I don't fully buy this idea either that the light is an evil entity that's going to gobble, it's going to force you to reincarnate. So I'm kind of on the fence about it. But again, you get these people there who become complete conviction. They'll make these statements again without any really any evidence about it. So it's kind of like the idea is, don't give me the facts, they're too nice and good for me, so there must be a catch. Which sounds to me like a psychological defense mechanism. So is this a wider psychological problem? Distrusting reality seems to be an issue in a chaotic and disappointing world. So while many conspiracy theories turn out to be true, many more are wrong, and yet people cling to them. For example, flat earth, space is not real, or solipsism, which is the idea I am the only one who exists, everyone else are illusions. And also, I mentioned Anthony Peake. Peake is also a solipsist. So in his books, he writes it from the perspective that you are the only one who exists, because he believes that you reading the book exists in a separate dimension. Everybody else are illusions. So he's telling his readers that they're the only ones who exist, and everybody else are these like shells. Like they're not real people. Like as if that philosophy isn't going to cause problems. Like, come on. So death is the source of most psychological problems and deeply rooted beliefs. And so it manifests in this corrupted version of the afterlife that keeps appearing, where it's not really what we think. The end result, a highly distorted and confusing subject with sometimes varied opinions. Requires a lot of effort to filter through to the truth, as well as battling our own cynicism that results in these ideas. The idea is that something is too good to be true is not a law that's set in stone, despite the fact that we see that coming up again and again. And of course, we have the existential crises that come with this whole topic. I've been asking questions on the Reddit thread about people who are saying that they have fear of eternity. So just as people get fear of non-existence, you get people with this crippling fear of, like, how can you live for like 1 trillion years? And that's a whole different subject, but in a nutshell, that's when people talk about how there isn't a perception of linear time, like that's the answer for that we perceive things days, months, years, whereas on that side, it's a different kind of perception. And I don't think people worry about existing forever. It's almost too difficult to describe. But again, though, it creates this doom and gloom, as opposed to learning about the kind of the spiritual elements that goes with all this. You can't get just a piece of the puzzle. You have to learn about the spiritual elements and learn about everything else that comes with the subject. That's so important. You can't just take one snippet and try to extrapolate all the data from that one little subject. So discussion, have you also had issues with this? What are some examples of serious misconceptions that you've dealt with? And other ideas that you used to believe about these subjects, but you do not anymore, and why? So Keely and Corey, oh wait, we also have Amanda. So glad you could make it. I don't know how much of the presentation you're able to see. So do you guys have any thoughts about that? About this kind of tendency for people to believe things are too good to be true, or what are some issues that you guys have dealt with in regard to people's beliefs about these things?
I mean, I think some things are too good to be true, but I think the examples that you made are silly ones. Like, oh, it's too good to be true, so we're just not going anywhere, and we're just not really even ourselves. Like, those are just kind of weird theories. You know what I mean? And I think, like, when you're talking about someone saying, oh, why would you want to live for eternity? I don't think, well, the time thing would probably be different, but I don't think we're just sitting there like doing what we're doing here. And
right.
You know what I mean? It would be quite different, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's literally people that, imagine it's your same life for a trillion. Come on, that's ridiculous.
Yeah, like over and over, like, oh God, I couldn't make dinner for an eternity. That's for damn sure. But I think in the afterlife, things are different. So you have to kind of realize that. Plus, I'm sure people reincarnate, they get bored, or who knows.
Well, you go into becoming multi-dimensional, and then there's a lot of weird stuff the deeper you dig about the idea that, okay, if we're all one consciousness, if we go back to a higher level, then you can actually be the consciousness of anybody else. So, like, I'm gonna live as this person, or as this entity, and then as 100 other people at the same time. So it's kind of like, but yeah. So which sounds weird, but kind of the way it has to be when we start dealing with like existential problems like eternity. So we have to have the full flexibility to, the whole idea that we're all gods, or we're all God. It's almost the only way to really flesh that problem out, because that's kind of the solution. So, okay, well, we can do anything, and we can be anybody, and we are anything. And if that's the case, does eternity still sound so bad if it can be everything and anybody? Corey, any ideas about that?
Well, you asked about, things that bother me, or things that, I think all the new age stuff definitely bothers me. Like I said, this is why I hang around here and I listen to some other individuals, is because they seem to be more grounded in, I guess I would say, reality, or what I'm accustomed to. I really think that the afterlife is exactly like this life for the most part, except for, you really don't have to work, and you probably don't have to eat.
Yeah.
Things like that. But I don't expect it to be much different at all. And all these ideas of these crazy, you can do anything you want, or whatever you want, or whenever you want, or go over, poof out and poof over here and stuff like that. I don't know. Some of that stuff really bothers me.
Well, I don't know. So why does it bother you? Because it depends on what we're talking about. Because on one hand, I agree with you. It is or can be just like here. But there's other stuff that's really like different. it's been explained to me as like, Cyrus, we can't even tell you some of these things because you wouldn't be able to like comprehend it. And that was in relation to the idea of like being in multiple places at once.
That's a great one that gets me riled up, because to me it just sounds like an excuse. Like, it's almost like channeling, in the sense that, people can just kind of channel a bunch of BS out and it sounds great, and I guess it's meaningful, but you got a bunch of people nodding their heads and getting all emotional, but I don't get anything out of it.
Well, my big issue with the channel stuff, and I guess I'm looking at Abraham Hicks. I guess it's good that Mary Beth left the group, because I think she'd get really angry if she heard me say this. But my issue with that is, I see these videos and like the lady is talking, and then everyone's going, I see, yes, like that, and it really bugs me because it's not a discussion. And so I think just because you claim to be channeling something doesn't mean that somebody in the audience isn't channeling something as well. So other people, I mean, it's raising themselves up to the guru status, like Her Holiness in that case, right?
Yeah.
But so when people say stuff to me that like, it's infallible, or not infallible, like it's undescribable, I can't describe it. It's just, to me, I don't know, it's just an excuse to sound like you've been there and done that. You're a little bit higher than what these other people are, but go away now. I'm done talking. And it just drives me nuts. I think that it can be described. I don't think it's that far out of the realm of it. I don't think when you cross over that you're going to be any different than you are now. And I think you're going to have to work for goals just like you do here.
Well, I mean, like I tell people, like on the astral side, which is one place we go to, I mean, there's corporations, and then there's news. I mean, if that gives you any idea.
I was working last night.
Yeah, and when we want to do that, I'm sorry, Corey.
That's right.
No, I'm sorry for interrupting. Go ahead.
So, I was working last night. I was there doing things, definitely working, trying to figure out this contraption. It's kind of funny, actually. But I mean, it's very similar to what we're doing here. And I can't just necessarily think that you can just do whatever you want, whenever you want it, and just build or make or poof into existence something. So a lot of that stuff bothers me. And when I read about it in Afterlife books or other New Age books, I usually put the book down.
I think we're getting at something here to talk about, though, because I mean, it bothers me too. But the problem is we keep hearing these accounts, so it has to be accounted for somehow. Like how do we rectify these two things? And so basically, my theory about it is that there's almost like that these, a little bit like what I talked about last class, mental versus tangible experiences. It's almost like there's this.
Well, yeah, I mean, I can do this in lucid dreaming.
Exactly. That's what I mean. So,
but I can't do that in certain realms where, and I guess I would say certain realms. I say astral realms or whatever. I can't do it there, which means that when I cross over, I'm not going to necessarily be able to do it there.
Well, I mean, I think that's exactly so. So, what to us is a lucid dream could be expanding into something that's like we have full control over on that. So on the lucid dream, we're still struggling because we can wake up. A cat meows, a dog barks, and we're out of it. But on that side, I think it's possible to be in lucid dreams where you can stay there as long as you want, right? And so if that's the case, if you're in a realm like that, it's going to be exactly what these New Age books describe, right? So that the big takeaway point is I think people enter into these mental realms that we call lucid dreams. I call them like demi-planes, like subplanes that are created by our own minds. Now, something always stuck with me, right, is there is that channel book, I think it was by Anthony Borgia. So it was either Life in the World Unseen or it was Facts. I forget which book. He talks about that kind of upper astral, which isn't like the urban, like Earth-like world. It's a little bit more pristine. But even on that side, he's like, those carpenters and engineers and people, or people, there's civilization. And then he said that his advice, or a big difference, is that he says that when you're on this side, you need to keep 1 foot in the objective world, because it's easy to fall into like some subjective, like dream-like reality if you decide you want to go take a nap and not wake up.
Yeah.
And he basically said that's something you have to be careful of here, because somebody will end up going into a fantasy and then never leaving that fantasy. And that's basically like a lucid dream. So I don't remember the page number it was on. I might be paraphrasing it a little bit, but that was a point in that book. And then that really made things click for me, because it's like, well, now we're looking at a difference between like fantasy and like objective reality. It's like, which one do you want to live in? Now, I talk to people who say, oh, I want to live in the fantasy because, I want to be able to do this and that. And I want to, have Angelina Jolie as a girlfriend. And I want to be able to have the sports car. And I want to like, travel on a spaceship. And I say, well, all right. So, you can go into this fantasy lucid dream, but now you're not sharing it with anybody who's real. Now it's like, it's a fantasy escape. So the people you meet are just in your own mind. They're not real people. So what kind of meaningful experiences can you really have? And my answer would be none. So, who wants to be in a place like that all the time? I mean, it's kind of like the holodeck from Star Trek, but
exactly.
But not even as good as that, because the holodeck from Star Trek, at least the computer AI, I think probably could have its own kind of separate existence. But for us, if we create our own holodecks, it's like the people we meet are actually just our own thoughts. So that's yeah. I don't know. You guys have any thoughts about that?
Well, to use that analogy in Star Trek, the whole team went into these holodeck and had missions and did things, and I don't know if they learned anything, but as a group, they were in there, and I could see that. I mean, I could see a group of individuals creating a Star Wars environment and living in it. There are going to be way too many Darth Vaders running around,
right?
Or Game of Thrones world, and
sure. Well, I mean, even that though, at least then if you're playing a game and it's with like an artificial creation, but you're with like real people who are all like, I want to be Darth Vader, I want to be Darth Vader. At least it's still a real thing, because you're sharing. Even if it's like a video game, you're still sharing it with real people.
Sure, but that's not really the afterlife. That's the holodeck in the afterlife.
It is. Well, I mean that exists. Okay, like I know that because I haven't really been in one, but I've talked to people who have. And I remember I talked about the Harry Potter stuff. So there's a lot of people who do that with Harry Potter on that side in London, because it's almost like a theme park. You go into it, and then they'll take you into like Hogwarts and all that kind of stuff. And but then I hear people do about Lord of the Rings, and I'm sure any franchise. And like you said, it's going to be like, well, how many people want to be Hermione? So it's going to have like 6 Hermiones running around. So it seems like a lot of fun. And I have I do have memories, like astral dream memories, not full experiences of doing this kind of stuff, like being in like fantasy settings, Dungeons and Dragons kind of stuff. I think it's a lot of fun, and you're sharing it with other people. But yeah, I mean that's not the afterlife. That's a theme park in the higher spectrum dimension.
Yeah. So in that area, you can change things and do things as long as they fit in with the physics of that game. But the afterlife, I really think, is just going to be a little easier than this life, but pretty much the same.
Now you can change things with your mind on the astral plane. Now one of the commenters on YouTube channel, he pointed out really well, because he verifies something I verified. It's like if you're on a busy street astrally, you can't like just create stuff and change everything, or if you do, you can even get in trouble. Like the police might come, as weird as that sounds. But if you go to like a secluded area, you can begin just modifying and changing things, because there's nobody else around whose thoughts are going to be interfering with it, and there's nobody else that you can disturb. So he said that he will walk out into the woods and find a quiet place with nobody around, and then suddenly he's able to start like making stuff. So that's one interesting perspective, I guess, about how that kind of works. And then you can create things on a subconscious level, which can be sometimes hazardous if someone's mind is out of whack. So this is what I learned in regards to my mother, and when she was in a hospital type setting. What the nurses told me, which was that she's in such a disturbed state of mind, she's creating all of this crazy stuff that's manifesting around her, and then I witnessed that. It was not pleasant. That's why they had her like in an isolation facility. So
one thing I forgot that really drives me nuts, which is kind of, I mean, yeah, I guess it's a theory that drives me nuts, is that that there is no consequences for anything, or no karma, and we all go to such a great place, and that there's nothing more that gets me more mad. I think that is the worst thing imaginable that someone could say.
I think absolutely. I mean, well, this is the issue of moral relativism. It's the thing that I always rail against. And I think I almost want to put this on YouTube now, just because these are really important points. I think,
but yet we have free will. But it's a plan, and it's a whatever they say.
Soul contract, right?
Yeah, it's a contract, and you're supposed to do it. But yet we have free will. But you're supposed to do it, and nothing bad's going to happen to you.
Well, I mean, what's going on here is, I think there are soul contracts. I just think what's happening is that we're misinterpreting all the information. So, like, because somebody willingly, with their free will, decided to put themselves in a really bad position by reincarnating as themselves, not even like a soul group reincarnating, coming back as themselves, because they want to be the victim of something they did to somebody else, because they can't forgive themselves, because they have like a psychological problem, and they let's say in this life, they stole someone's life savings, and then they talk to their guides like, please put me back into a life where it'll be lined up where that happens to me. And then they say, are you sure you want to do that? He's like, yes. Then then they go on with that, because they feel like they have to do it to like be able to forgive themselves. I mean, I can kind of understand that. So people have stories like this, like the past life regression stuff, and I believe that kind of stuff can happen. But then what happens is that people misinterpret that information. So they think that because somebody put themselves in a situation like that everyone is just playing a role. What they don't understand is that somebody who sets their life up that way, like the person who ends up stealing from them, or murders them, or whatever it might be, they're not playing a role. Like the person who commits the action, all that's happened is they put themselves in a life where guides are able to see, like, clairvoyantly what's going to happen in the future. It's like, okay, if you choose this life, this is probably going to happen to you. It doesn't take anyone off the hook. It doesn't mean that, these people are just they're just actors in a play, and someone who's a murderer here dies and is an angel in heaven. So people are just they're creating this really terrible misinterpretation of the life, past life stuff.
Yeah, and I think it gives people like a path to be, have no moral compass. It really like, oh, well, if I can do whatever I want, and I mean, not that should, move your moral compass, but I mean, you should already be, be a good person. But I think some people, maybe that just scares them enough, to think, I don't want to spend my life or my eternity miserable. And I'm not saying they're going to like the biblical hell, but I don't believe that they go to some wonderful place with all of us who haven't gone out and killed someone. I don't get it.
Yeah. It's the Abraham Hicks stuff saying, Hitler goes back to pure positivity. I mean, it's because
how is that possible? I mean, how?
I mean, it's the belief that there is no such thing as negativity. So it's those people who, they go through life pretending negativity isn't real, and you see these people here in this world, they have these fake smiles all the time. They're going around, pretending bad stuff isn't real, And then when something bad happens to them, they pretend like, oh, thank you for giving me this learning opportunity. And then they keep getting exploited because of that, or they have all this rage and anger inside of them, and then they unleash all of it. Like, there's some of the people I've known in so-called spiritual communities have been some of the most like volatile personalities I've ever met. And they're the ones pretending that they're just, pure positivity. So I'm just really skeptical of that. And I don't feel like this is the way reality is set up. So there is this negative positive polarity, and that if we didn't have that, I think it'd be bad, because it would be like that 90s film by Kids in the Hall. You guys remember that one, Brain Candy?
Yes.
You remember it, Keely?
I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. So some drug is invented to like remove negative emotions and creates like an apocalypse or something like that.
Happy. Yeah.
I don't remember all the, but I think it's a close analogy.
I don't remember it all, but I remember parts of it. Yeah, that's funny. No, but something about that I don't like. Maybe I want people to be punished, and maybe that's negative of me, but I don't know. I just think that people that do horrible things shouldn't think that everything's going to be peachy when they die. And I don't know. I think it's a sick concept. Like,
well, it's like, and then I've heard that criticism. Oh, Cyrus, you just want to punish people. That's what you talk about.
That's what people have said to me, and I'm like, maybe I do. I don't know, but
the thing is that because this was also like I saw this at ridiculous Abraham Hicks video where an audience member was like, I think I want to punish people. It must be my Catholic upbringing. Everybody has a laugh. And then Abraham Hicks, of course, says, oh, but it is not like this because everyone goes back to pure positivity, blah, blah, blah.
Whatever.
And so, but the thing is that, it's not about wanting to punish somebody. What it is, it's about wanting things to be in accordance to natural law. So if something goes against that, I think it causes us to feel like something isn't right. So if somebody does something horrible, then it would go against natural law for that horrible action to disappear. Okay, so like if I decided, okay, I'm in a hostel and people share food in the fridge. Now, if somebody has like a $10, or $20 filet mignon in there, I go in there and I heat it up and I eat it. It would go against natural law for me not to feel bad.
Yeah.
Right. Like if I did that, and then I didn't care and he didn't care, like it would be conflicting with like the way the universe works. It would lead to like nothing matters kind of thing. Like there's no significance to anything. There's nothing sacred. So there has to be that negativity. Like if I go and do that, there has to be that polarity going on. So it's not about wanting to punish people. It's about wanting things to stay true to natural law.
And that's been like.
Corey, sorry.
So the best way to learn a lesson is to experience it. Experience the whole situation. And this is why I really resonate with the idea that if you do some shit, you're going to experience what you did to somebody through their eyes. And I do resonate with that. I think if anything makes sense about punishment, that makes sense.
Yeah.
The idea that if you go there and just beat the crap out of somebody, guess what? In the future, you're going to get the crap beat out of you, and you're going to experience it.
Yeah.
So, and that makes more sense to me than karma. Karma doesn't. I don't know.
Well, the thing is karma is a terminology for the effects of that happening. So, like what you just described is the life review. The life review is designed to put you into the exact feelings of the things you did to somebody. So you beat the crap out of somebody, then you're going to feel what that person felt when you did it. And it all gets uploaded into your mind. So higher powers come, they do this to you after you die. It's set up. Sometimes it happens like mentally, but sometimes you have to actually go into a room, and then they hook you up, and then this happens to you. Your whole life gets played back, and then you really do experience that. So karma is the effects of that. So if you did all these bad things to people, and then you feel every bad thing you did, how that affects your psychology is what we call karma. It could end up where you feel so miserable about the things that you did that you feel like you have to go reincarnate to be able to make up for the things you did. And so that's what karma is. Does that
Yes,
make
I have a
sense?
hard time. I do have a hard time with that. I don't think I'm coming back. I don't think that I'm going to have another chance with a different whatever. I'm going to continue going on as I am. And there might be an oversoul, and it might want to spawn off another Corey, but that's not going to be me. It's, I might be able to get some information from it, but I am going to just continue going forward. I'm not going backwards, and starting over to learn a lesson. I'm going to learn a lesson during that life review and deal with it and move forward,
Yeah, and I agree with that. I think also that relates to like the concept I've talked about, which is individual godhood. Okay, so maybe we have a group soul and we're spawning different people, and we're all connected to the same higher entity. But that thing is a purpose. It's almost like that the purpose of that thing is to like reproduce, if that makes sense. It's like it isn't to spawn and then merge back. It's more like these little facets that break off are building up, until someday maybe I become my own group soul, right? Like I branch off and I'm becoming my own thing. Like that's what I kind of feel like is happening. It makes less sense that we branch off and become these individual people, and then we just kind of merge back into it, and then like, well, that was fun, that's it.
That's the same thing as merging into the source. I mean, I don't get it. I don't know.
Yeah, and there's a lot of ancient philosophy about this. They're called the right-hand path and the left-hand path. So the right-hand path, it involves merging back with God, and the left-hand path is individual godhood. So this actually relates to ancient Celtic traditions and a lot of other ancient spiritual beliefs. They also pointed these things out. And people who are solely on the right-hand path, they're kind of walking down a path to have themselves deleted, because they feel it's better to just go back into source consciousness and not be who they are anymore. But people on the left-hand path are like off to become their own gods. So that's what philosophers have talked about for thousands of years. I think it's a little bit too polarizing to say it's either or. I think this is something that's observational. Like people involved in these discussions for thousands of years have, came to those conclusions. But at least there is a distinction. And so I do think at the very least, if we use those terminologies, being on the so-called right-hand path purely and not having any awareness of the individual is probably counterproductive to what, quote, God actually wants, which is to reproduce, create new versions of itself, to create new individual powers. And I don't know, maybe I'll harass the Dalai Lama about this. Keely, did you have anything you wanted to say? Because I think you were saying something at one point. I think my internet connection was giving out there.
Well, if it says,
can you guys hear me? Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Just like that's been like my hardest thing, working with people, owning my own business. Why people are hurtful and for no reason. Like why do they go and seek out someone to hurt? I don't understand it like at all. And I mean, it's taken me a long time to get some thick skin about it. But yeah, like I still don't. I mean, when someone is shitty to me in return after I have like gone out of my way for them over and over, I don't understand it. Like I really don't, and it's really hurtful to me. I don't get it. So I don't know. Like it just kind of, because I guess I wouldn't think of doing something like that. I don't think other people would, but that's a definite negative. Like there's obviously a negative and a positive. I mean, we see it every day in life, right? And yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, and then the people who live that path, I mean, they're going down. I mean, it's a wrong path unless
Yeah.
they're on the they're on, and that's the whole idea about trying to help other people. Spiritual work is helping people not be that way, I guess.
Yeah.
Real quick, I know we're going to wrap up soon. I wanted to mention
Yeah.
to Amanda, if you're in the room, Amanda, but you don't want to use the microphone or the video, you remember you can use the chat button if you have anything you wanted to say or talk about. If you just go down and use your mouse, you'll see a button that says chat. And so if you have anything you want to toss in there, you can do it there.
I had a question when it's off the subject though, because when you mentioned space, right?
Yeah.
Because I was thinking like eternity, we could, go out and see what space is like, whatnot. And then it reminded me of, what is his name? Is it Corey Good, or is that what his name is, or what's his name? The one that has this big long story and he sits there and tells it about space and this and that. I just want to know.
There's a bunch of them. There's Corey Good, Emery Smith, a little bit, not as much space.
Yeah, Corey
Kramer. There's lots
Tony
of
Rodriguez.
but they've been out in space.
And I've listened to Tony Rodriguez. I like him. But like Corey Good, oh my gosh, he can go on and on. Or is that him? Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
And it's fascinating. But what do you think about that?
One of the ones that really caught my eye was Randy Kramer, because he had this description of space that stuck with me. It's like if this guy's a writer, I mean, then he deserves like a what is like the Hugo Nebula Award for science fiction. Basically he was talking about how he said space will change you because it's not like what people say or what you because there's like an urban legend that when you're in space you can't see any stars. And then I later read up on this and found out that this is actually an urban legend, that in reality when you're in space and there's no interference from the atmosphere, in fact you can see like the entire cosmos. It just goes on and on and on. So he said that the most beautiful experience is being out in space and being able to endlessly see into the stars and nebulas on and on and on and on, and that you can just float in space and stare at it, and then it's like this blissful experience. And just a really interesting stuff if these guys are telling the truth, which I mean I don't know, but like I've often said that they're either telling the truth or they're having these astral experiences. Because as me and Corey have found out, the astral version of Earth can be so similar. I mean, it has governments and has militaries, so these guys could be having astral experiences there where it's possible to be in spaceships and meeting ETs and things that you can't do here, and they're confusing it and thinking that they're having these experiences here. So that's kind of my go-to explanation for these people's stories. But at the same time, there's been some developments in that area, which is like a week or two ago, there was these 2 Marine Corps guys came forward, and they were heavily vetted. Really? Basically this lady, Linda Moulton Howe, she's a very credible UFO researcher. Yeah. And so she'd been vetting these guys for like a year or something, and then they both came forward anonymously and basically are confirming stuff that Corey Good said. And that we're out in space. Corey Good last year said that we had landed a probe on Oumuamua, that thing that was going by, that they thought was like an extraterrestrial rock or something, and confirmed that it was an ancient derelict spacecraft, which now Harvard University says that they think that it might have been a derelict extraterrestrial spacecraft. Oh my gosh. And this was Harvard, and you can Google that, Harvard Oumuamua. So the head of the astronomy department said that they thought it was a derelict spacecraft that was on solar sails.
That's neat.
Well, that's what Corey Good said a year before.
Okay.
And then now there's these two Marine Corps guys who came forward and said that, so Corey Good had a story saying that our secret space program landed a probe with people in it to enter the Oumuamua. And now these two guys came forward and then confirmed that this happened. And basically they said that it was like a billion-year-old spacecraft, and that the remnants of the occupants were basically, they turned like this thick sludge on the floor, but they were able to collect like DNA samples of it, and that they did find intact bodies that were inside like tank or like preservation chambers, and that they said that the whole craft had over like the last millions of years been looted by different like species who found it. But there was very little like technology left in it because it had been ransacked. But they said it belonged to like an ancient, some call it like an ancient builder race. So it's like one of the first like really big like civilizations in the galaxy from like a billion years ago, and that they have like different ruins all over the galaxy. So that was the whole story behind that. Again, I didn't really believe it when Corey Good was saying it, but then you get all this like mainstream verification and like these insiders who came forward. So now I'm going from like, okay, these guys are just having these astral experiences to maybe this is really going on. So I'm still trying to freaking deal with all this. I don't know. Did you have any thoughts about that, Keely?
I mean, listening to them, and like Tony Rodriguez seems very genuine. I think he seems very confused, like he's just figuring all this out. It's very hard for him, I know he said, I think he got divorced, and he seems genuine. Now when you watch like Corey talk, he looks straight at you, and he has these big stories of like going to down spacecraft and checking for life, and how he just talks like so much. So they're very interesting to watch, but very over the top, right? So it makes you question it. But it's interesting if things are being confirmed. And then you think like all this stuff is going on behind our backs, supposedly, and we don't know shit about it. I think that's really horrible. If it is true, like they can do all this stuff and we're just left like stupid.
Well, I mean that was missing $21 trillion. So that's half of the global budget is missing and gone into black projects, and that means that's not like conspiracy theory stuff. That's actually real. And so they say that's true. That's how the space program is built, using the $21 trillion. And so if that is real, I mean, it's the biggest scandal in the history of mankind, if that's real.
Oh, absolutely.
And also because it means that they're sitting on top of technology that could do things like cure cancer and probably have free energy. But the whole idea that something like this was made and it was kept secret was to keep power structures in place and not to like make Shell Oil in Texaco go out of business. So that's basically what all these guys say. That's the reason that everything was kept, is because of Shell, Texaco, and whatnot.
Big pharma and all that.
So I mean, it's really crazy. I mean, I guess we've gone off topic a bit here, but I do talk about this. I don't talk about.
Yeah, we have.
I don't talk about it much to like an official capacity because it's so out there and difficult for people to swallow. I'm sure, Corey, I'm sure you're here like, what the fuck? Where has this conversation gone?
Yeah.
But so I don't talk about it too much in an official capacity, but there is weird stuff going on, I think.
I just had to ask because
Can you guys hear me? My internet connection just kind of went south a little bit.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, good. Yeah, I think the video is getting interrupted. I think you guys can still hear me. So whatever you're saying, Corey, I think I missed it.
I just said as a Corey, I have no comment.
Yeah. I think that hopefully Hopefully the other Corey hasn't messed up the name for Corey's everywhere, um, but yeah, there's a lot in that subject, Keely, Tony Rodriguez stuff.
Yeah. It
Well,
just when we said something about space, it reminded me to ask you.
Yeah. I talk about that on the YouTube channel a little bit. I talk about some of those subjects,
Yeah.
but again, not to any much official capacity because it's just
Too
but
much.
I can say though, I mean, it's an ongoing story, and I want to see it uncovered either as fake or real. And if it is fake, like why is it fake? Why is this story being pushed out to people? Who's doing it? And if it's real, then I want to see some real evidence come out. I want to see like the real disclosure happen. I think until that happens, like I feel like somebody like me, I have my hands tied behind my back. I can't really do much about it, and nobody can really. Well, anyway, so you guys have any
Yeah.
last questions or thoughts about like the topic here, which was what we were talking about, these new age misconceptions again, which I think is great. So real quick, let me ask you guys, do you guys have any objections if I put this on YouTube? Because I feel like there's some good conversation there to talk about with regard to some of those new age objections. If you guys don't feel comfortable, it's cool. I don't have to put it up. But what do you guys think?
I'm fine.
Yeah,
Corey?
whatever you want to do.
Is that good? Okay, cool. Yeah, and I know
Yeah, I'm
because I
fine.
usually would warn somebody ahead of time because people maybe don't want to see their faces to go on the public channel or something like that. So I have to ask. So I'll probably put this up because I think it was a really good conversation about that. And I
Yeah,
think
sorry to go off topic. It was a good conversation. I just
no,
when
that's fine, Kelly. No, when you give me going talking about all the secret space program stuff, like sometimes I'll get all revved up and then I won't stop.
yeah.
But did you guys have any last questions about? I guess well, the main topic was, again, the afterlife misconceptions or fatalism. I remember I called it before like spiritual fatalism. Like this is too good to be true. Do you guys have any last thoughts or ideas about that?
Well, for me, this is why I like to go back to the older books, books that were written before the internet, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
I really like reading those and trying to match up all the parts that kind of make sense. So you mentioned Anthony, or was it Bordeaux?
Borgia, I think.
Borgia. Yeah, that was great. That stuff's good. And it really helps me because, since the internet, it's just gotten out of control. I mean, the sky's the limit as far as the afterlife is concerned for some people.
Yeah.
I just don't see it. I don't see it.
And it's like, where do they come up with those theories? That's what I want to know. Like, are they just sitting there and they think, oh yeah, this makes sense to me, so I'm going to spread it.
Yeah, or they take some drug and then they have like an epiphany, which is not really an epiphany because they're smoking their DMT. And then the older material. I mean, I guess the best idea is just to follow the data. So, the data basically points to, like, if I have astral experiences, I guess the same stuff that a good medium like Suzanne Wilson is talking about what the other side is like. Or it's the same stuff that, for example, Brenda in our group who talks to her, Ashley, the daughter, is saying, about what the other side is like and is coming through Sonia Rinaldi now.
Yeah, how
and
neat.
working with that. And what they're saying, what the other side is like, is the same stuff I'm saying, same stuff Corey is saying in his experience. It's the same stuff. I mean, it's just like, you just follow the data. It's always going back to the same perspective. And so when we start doing 180s and venturing way outside of that, then you follow the data. It's like, where are they getting the information from? You'll find it's not spirit communication. It's not like proper astral experiences. It's like, it's like, it's usually dubious sources and sometimes related to psychedelics. So again, that's that whole issue is that the psychedelics, it's real. These inner states are real, but I think it causes confusion. All right. Well, I guess that's it for today. Good conversation. Even though smaller class, I'm glad we were able to talk about some of those things. That's why I'd like to, I'll put this on YouTube. So hopefully this conversation will be of benefit to other people watching. So if you're on YouTube watching this, then this was Afterlife University. If you want to help keep Afterlife topics going, want to get involved and join these classes, then you can subscribe. That's afterlifetopics.com/university and join us, join the little motley crew here. You can also, head to Afterlife Topics Metaphysics Facebook group. Be sure to hit subscribe for this channel. That's a really great way to help keep expanding this information up, because right now it's like our channel almost has as many subscribers as a lady who has 6 videos of her cats. So
no, okay, we need more.
So almost to the point to what we want to do is get to as many subscribers as like a teenage girl who has 16 videos of her dog. So at that point we're in like the multi-thousand level. But right now we're still that lady with some cats. So trying to get over that hump.
Well, I'd like to say,
what's that, Corey?
It'd be nice to have more people participate in these classes, because I learned by listening to everybody else's experiences. I'm learning by listening to Cyrus's experiences, but everybody, Keely, Brenda, Michelle, everybody in here is contributing to this. And when I talk, I'm not learning anything. So, it'd be nice to have more people. So the more that you get these on YouTube and get people interested,
I agree.
You understand that they can go back and listen to all these classes that aren't necessarily on YouTube, at their leisure. So, the more the better. It'd be nice to have more people.
Yeah, all the classes are archived on the Facebook group for people who subscribe, or if people just want to check it out for free. I mean, I don't want to pressure people into paying money. It's just that I do have to do that, because if I didn't, if I put 20 hours of work in a week toward this, that means that pretty soon it's like, I can't eat. So I have to charge. But if I had made a bunch of money, honestly, because I also run a business with my books. So if suddenly my books, like my cookbooks, my publishing company took off and I was making lots of money, I'd probably open all this up to be free. There'd be a huge amount of people would flood in. But because I don't have that ability, I have no choice but to charge a subscription. But anyway, I don't want to go off too much on that. Thanks for coming by, guys. So next class, I was going to talk more about psychedelics and breaking dimensional barriers, but I hadn't quite fleshed that out yet. So next week's classes, it could change something else. I'm trying to flesh something out in regard to the idea that there's a veil, and can we use chemicals to break through that? Can we use technology to break through that? What's the possible physics behind it? But again, I haven't. This is where we go into all the the 20, 30 hours of work a week involved, because now I need to figure out what kind of research I can do and how I can create presentations about something like that, which is still just this kind of haven't quite fleshed it out yet, so that we can have a conversation about it. But anyway, so that's.
Can I ask a question real quick, Cyrus?
Yeah, sure.
What is DMT? Is that what you called it? DMT? Is
dimethyl something with a T after. That's the it's the main hallucinogenic substance that you'll find in, for example, psilocybin mushrooms. Basically, and then some argue that it's produced naturally in the brain. The idea is that it might be a chemical that's literally designed to jettison us into the spirit world. Like you take a little bit of that, and you can either have a really cool astral experience, or you have a crazy inner experience that is quite subjective, but it's an ultimate lucid dream experience. But it also get really crazy. And then a lot of people have encounters with non-human entities. It basically puts you someplace that is really far out there, but it may serve a purpose in the sense that if you take smaller amounts of it, it's been proven that what it does is it just connects you better to other people. So it's been shown as a really, really beneficial antidepressant that gives people a sense of empathy with other people. So there's a lot of new studies coming out. So I think the mistake people are making is they take these big doses of DMT and they have these crazy trips, but all along it's like it's actually designed for us to take small amounts of it, like a vitamin.
Okay.
So I don't do that because I don't really believe in taking substances so much, even if it is naturally occurring in the brain. Like I'm just weary about it, but it's really interesting, especially if it can medically help people. What's that, Corey?
So how would you know that your experience was real if you're on some drug?
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing, is that a lot of times I think it's not real, but it's a subjective mental state, which is what we were talking about this week. So it's not the concrete spiritual experience or the astral experience. Although those can happen from DMT, I believe it is the inner mental experiences that it causes. So a lot of times it's not real. So I think that's important for people to know about too.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, all right, guys. Well, I guess I'm going to bounce out of here. It's 12 p.m. here in Japan. I need to eat something. I haven't even eaten today. I've just been dealing with internet crap and stuff. So anyway, okay, guys. I'll catch you guys next time. Thanks for coming by. And until next time.
Say hi to the Dalai Lama for me.
Well, I'm not going to the Dalai Lama place until June. So we got some time. I'll definitely do videos about that once I'm out there in India, Himalayas.
That'll be fun. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. See you guys.
Bye.